have the best job in the world. Young entrepreneurs, to believe in yourself. When I decided to leave the old law firm and start my business, everyone told me, no, you have a safe job.
You're a partner.
Why would you do this?
Yeah.
But I believed in myself. And when I started CompuDoc, everyone said, oh, there's got to be somebody who's already doing that. And how are you going to make an impact? And I listened to myself and I did it. Listen to other people, take advice, consider it, make a decision, and then act on it. And once you've made that decision, trust yourself.
John Osha, an award-winning U.S. patent attorney, Nobel Chair at Osha BWB, and one of the leading voices in the intellectual property law. John has over 30 years of experience working across diverse industries like AI, aerospace, blockchain, and more. He's also the founder of CompuDopt, a nonprofit dedicated to bridging the digital divide by providing access to technology for underserved youth. What makes your company stand out?
Well, two things, I believe. First is
This episode of the Alpha Talk Show is brought to you by The Fashion Factor, the game-changing platform revolutionizing the future of fashion and business. The highly anticipated 9th edition is coming to Dubai on October 26th and 27th at the Agenda Media City. If you're ready to lead and innovate in this fast-paced industry, now is your chance. Register today to secure your spot where fashion meets business and your vision becomes unstoppable. Don't miss out, Alpha Squad. Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talks Show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region. Today, we're honored to have an Alpha guest, John Osha, an award-winning U.S. patent attorney, Global Chair at Osha BWB, and one of the leading voices in the intellectual property law. John has over 30 years of experience working across diverse industries like AI, aerospace, blockchain, and more, managing complex international IP portfolios and shaping the global IP landscape. John has been instrumental in driving forward international IP harmonization and addressing the challenges posed by emerging technologies. He's also the founder of CompuDopt, a nonprofit dedicated to bridging the digital divide by providing access to technology for underserved youth. In today's episode, we're going to explore John's journey, his role in shaping the IP industry, and how intellectual property plays a critical role in the world of entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology. So welcome, John, to the Alpha Talks Show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you today.
Well, thanks so much for having me here. It's my pleasure.
Man, that's going to be a lovely episode. It's a topic that a lot of people don't know about. They just heard about, they know the importance of it, but actually don't know the nuts in it, the details, which is important for their business and actually their life. Before we start, I have a usual question. People will see when we launch the episode, they will see the thumbnail, the title, the graphics, and they will think it's an interesting episode. What can you promise them today that they gain if they gave us their time?
They will walk away with more understanding of why intellectual property is important to all businesses. You know, most people think about patents, they think high tech.
Exactly.
Intellectual property can affect every business in a positive or negative way. So having a basic understanding is really important.
I love that. The first thing, how do you feel today? How was your trip
great.
to Dubai so far?
Dubai is such a wonderful place. I'm always happy when I'm here. It's the land of excitement.
I love your positivity. John, in a nutshell, who's John in a nutshell? I'm going to dig deep, but who's John in a nutshell, even from your perspective?
I am somebody that is always trying to learn more. And I think that's what drives me.
Yeah.
I am an electrical engineer. I am an attorney at law. But I always like to challenge myself and to keep learning, and I think that's what defines me.
I love that. John, your career spans over 3 decades, and you said you're an engineer. What were the, I would say, turning points in your life that led to where you are now? Like, from an engineer to law, and particularly IP.
Well, the story's even stranger than you might think. So I grew up in a very musical family.
Oh,
And it was expected that all of I had a brother and a sister, and everybody had to play multiple instruments. We had different groups, we performed, and I always assumed that I would be a career musician. I had a gift for singing, just naturally, and I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to do musical performance.
a lovely dream.
Yes, it was great. And so I studied, I worked, and all of this. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that I was good, but I wasn't really good. And the difference between good and really good is the difference between being really successful and not. So I looked around and I said, well, okay, what else can I do? And the other area that I thought I was good was math and science. I said, well, I'm gonna go be an engineer. So I changed from music to engineering, and I went to a good engineering school, Cornell University in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I got an electrical engineering degree. And I got out, and you know what? I discovered I was good, but I wasn't really good. and
Oh my God.
I was honest with myself.
You have a KPI to hit, you know?
I was like, 21 years old or something. I'm like, I'm not going to be the next Nobel-winning scientist. I'm just not that good. But then I had this incredible good fortune of getting a job in an intellectual property firm, a patent firm.
But that's after engineering?
Yeah, that was after engineering.
Wow.
But I thought they just needed a technical consultant. And I didn't know I was going to go into that career, but I had the luck to get that job and to end up working with somebody who was a mentor. And I know you talk a lot about mentors.
Exactly.
I was so lucky. I had somebody that really changed the trajectory of my career right there, because he helped me, he lifted me up, and he set such an amazing example for me. I never went back to science
At all.
No, I ended up going to law school. I got a graduate degree in law, and I stayed in patents. So
Wow.
it was a neat way to come into the business.
But lovely path. Started super different. But what attracted you or inspired you for IP? Like, where did you see it? And we're talking, I would say, like 20, 30 years back, right? So what attracted you at that time?
Yeah, actually, I took the patent agent's bar exam 35 years ago this month.
No way.
So it's a long time ago. It's a long time ago. But for somebody that is curious, and I am technologically curious. I love learning new stuff. I have the best job in the world because I get to see all the stuff that other people invent. Right? And they've spent their careers, and they're much smarter people than me, but I know enough of technology to be able to understand what they're telling me. And I get to help them protect their innovations. Right?
Wow.
And along the way, I get to learn all this neat stuff. And it's not only patents. We do trademarks and copyrights and that sort of thing too. But the patents, the technology, and watching people come up with these ideas and helping them protect them is very, very fulfilling.
Wow. I will touch upon this, but a little bit later. But for people who are, I would say, not even knew what is IP is, what is IP in a very nutshell? And there are differences. There are like trademarks, there are trade secrets, there are like, can you just give it in a nutshell for people who actually, guys, wake up, this is important.
Indeed. And it's kind of a scary sounding term, intellectual property, right? It puts people off. But at the end of the day, it's a creation of your mind that has value. It's an asset, just like money in the bank or a house or anything else. It's just, it's an asset in your mind. So we have these categories that most people have heard of, but don't know how to distinguish very well, right? So a patent is protecting an invention. So in most cases, that's a technological improvement of some sort. So you can think of a patent as covering the way something works.
Okay.
It has to be new in some way. Trademark is covering what something is called. So a name. So it could be a trade name. It could be a product. That's a trademark. So it's quite different from a patent, which is covering an invention. And then we have copyright. So copyright is a right that is extended to creators of any sort, whether you're an artist, a musician, whatever.
Okay.
And that is a right to protect against copying, hence copyright. Right? It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
So, for example, you wrote these notes. Well, you own a copyright in this. And so you could keep people from copying that if you wanted to. So those are the basic ones. And then there is also this concept of trade secret. And trade secret is not so much a right, but just an approach, a strategy. That if you don't want to pursue one of these mechanisms of public protection, so patents go public.
Okay.
Trademarks are public, obviously, because they're named.
Yeah.
Copyrights, you're going to share with people. They're normally public. A trade secret means we're going to keep it to ourselves. We're going to hide it.
Okay.
And we're going to protect it by just not telling anybody what it is. And that can be effective in some cases. The most famous case being the formula for Coca-Cola, right? That has been kept trade secret all these years. But obviously, if you're selling a product that people are going to be able to determine what it is when they buy the product, you can't protect it as a trade secret.
Oh, of course.
So trade secret's not available in all instances. But that's the basic breakdown
IP.
between those rights.
How important protecting IP in today's age?
Well, it's critically important, particularly for some businesses. There's a misunderstanding or a misbelief that intellectual property is only important to high-tech companies. And that's misplaced. You think about the value of intellectual property to an artist, to a photographer. You know, I'm a serious amateur wildlife photographer.
You promised me a gift.
And yes, I'm going to send you a gift. But I need to be able to protect those images because I spent a lot of time, money, to get that image that I wanted, and I don't want somebody just to be able to copy it, right? So intellectual property has value to almost every type of business, maybe just in the name of your business, maybe in the copyright of the manuals, your product manuals, and many aspects that can be important.
What is the worst case that happened in front of you for a client because they didn't do that? They didn't have their intellectual property protected, or...
Oh, we could spend all day giving stories.
Wow. Just give...
Yeah.
I just want people to really feel the pain because, like as humans, we move faster when we see the pain rather than, it's okay, it's nice to have.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a general example and a specific example. The general example that I would really like your listeners to think about is start early. A lot of times, particularly startups, they will have a good idea, a concept, business concept. Maybe it's technical, maybe it's just a service, but it's a group of people that get together and they're all gung-ho at the beginning. They're all friends.
Exactly.
And you know what happens a lot of times once they're successful is that there's a fight.
True.
And for whatever reason, one of the, say, 4 partners will get into a situation with the others, and you end up in an argument over who owns that idea.
Exactly.
Most of the time, they didn't take the time to sit down with someone like me early and put in a contract. Who owns this?
True.
Right? And to protect those rights in appropriate circumstances. So getting that advice early is really critical. So that's number one. But I'll give you an example at the other end of the spectrum. Big company, very sophisticated. I'm not going to name them, but big company. They call me and they say, John, one of our lead engineers just quit, went to work for a competitor. He's stealing all of our trade secrets. They're going to start making a competing product. I want you to go stop him. I said, okay, I can do that. So I went to their office. They have this beautiful high-rise building, big conference room. And in the conference room, they have this model of their product. And it's actually a full-size model in a glass case, and it's cut away with little indicators. And so the technology officer explains to me how this thing works, goes on. And he said, yeah, this is ours, and they cannot steal it. It's our trade secret. And after listening, I politely asked, who comes in this conference room?
Everyone.
Yeah. You don't have a trade secret, right? And they hadn't thought about that, right? So to have a trade secret, if you're going to keep something secret,
in a vault,
it needs to be secret.
True.
It needs to be protected, and certainly not on display in your conference room.
Wow.
Right? So that was a big loss of failure. You can protect something with a patent, or you can try to keep it secret. But if you don't do either, you don't have any protection, and there is no law against copying in the absence of protection.
Wow. A lot of people think if I'm going to go through this path, it's so complicated. Even if you ask Seif, okay, no, it's a complicated path when the time comes. And I love when you said, do it early. Let's say, can you go through a process of explaining how a business or an individual running a business can protect his IPs? What kind of process they go through? Because my understanding is you can protect your IP in a particular country, several countries, worldwide. So it becomes like as if when you're going to buy a real estate. Do you want it on the marina or on the pond? Do you want it 1 bedroom or 3 bedroom? Do you want it a house or an apartment? When people they have displayed in front of them a lot of options, they get lost. And they think it becomes like, okay, let's do it later. So in a nutshell, how it goes?
It needs to be part of a business plan.
Wow. Okay.
And to put it simply, if somebody comes to my office and says, John, I just came up with this great idea. I want you to protect it for me. I want you to get a patent.
Mm-hmm.
I will almost always refuse to help them. And I will tell them instead, take that same money that you were going to give to me and buy a lottery ticket, because that is a better chance of success.
Wow.
However, come back to me with a business plan where this idea is integrated into a business plan. Then I'll help you. That makes them go home and think, it's like, okay, I don't have this just idea by itself. I'm actually going to do something with it. I'm going to incorporate it into a product. I'm going to provide a service. And they come back with a business plan. Now I can help you. Now we're going to look at, okay, what is that? Can we protect it with a patent? Do we want to keep it as a trade secret? What is your business idea overall? Who owns this? How are we going to handle confidentiality? What agreements do we need with your employers and your employees and your contractors to make sure that you're protected and nobody can steal from you? Right? What do you want to call the business, and do we want to protect that with a trademark? Where are your customers going to be? So in which countries? So we can decide what we want to do in terms of scope of protection.
Okay.
And all of that plays into, of course, budget as well. But if you know what those choices are, then you can make the appropriate choices, on a budget and strategic basis. But most people have this idea, again, particularly for patents, that you have a concept, you protect it with a patent, and you become a millionaire. Almost never happens. I mean, it's statistically insignificant, the number of times
you have to have a business plan for it.
It needs to be pertinent to a business plan.
I love that. In an era where we live with a lot of content creators, and content creators, they have their personal brand, which is at the end of the day becomes a form of a trademark. How these people can apply for a trademark? How the process goes?
Well, the first thing is identifying what the trademark is.
Okay.
Right? And so trademark literally means some indication of where those goods or services come from. And interestingly, the very earliest trademarks were thousands of years ago on pottery. And so imagine yourself, you're a pottery maker 3,000 years ago or something, a long time ago. And you want people, if they like the pottery, to come back to you and buy more.
Yeah.
So you put on the bottom of the dish, you put a mark.
Correct.
Okay. And that way, the people know where to go buy that pottery. That's a trademark. That's what a trademark is. So it's an indication of source of goods. Right. So if we look at your trademark, for example, if we look at the crest, right? People who watch your podcast and read your media and watch your videos, they know what that is, right? True. That's, when I see that, that's this great content, right? And it has a positive association with it. So I would recommend protecting that with a trademark. That's the sort of thing that can be trademarked, right?
And what are the pillars of protecting a trademark? Number one, here is a trademark. There is a scope or countries that it's protected. There are the type of services in it. Like, what are okay, if I'm protecting myself with this trademark, what are the pillars that I need to cover?
Well, so trademark registration is country by country, mostly. And so you do have to decide where you want to protect yourself. Okay. And budget-wise, most people can't protect themselves everywhere in the world. Right? So you have to make some choices there. And it's also scope of goods. I don't want to sound like a lawyer. I start sounding lawyerly. But it's not just the word, it's also what it's associated with.
So it's either, for example, a shampoo, or it is a restaurant thing, or it's a food, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. And unless you're super, super famous, you're going to be limited to that scope of goods. So somebody else could use that same word for a completely unrelated product or service and not get in trouble with your trademark. Which seems fair, right? You shouldn't be able to lock up a word for everything. You're locking up the word for the product or service that you want to sell.
Budget variations, how does it look like? Let's take an example of a startup that wants to go into this process. Patent, and then also trademark. What are the budget numbers? Well, it's a matrix, unbelievable, I believe. Yeah. But how people can put their hand to start?
Yeah. Well, so patents are a lot more expensive than trademarks. Trademarks are a registration process that, I mean, just to give you a wild idea, is in the couple thousands of dollars per filing. Okay. Whereas
per filing means per country, kind
of.
Per
country, per class.
Okay.
Yeah. Patents, on the other hand, $10,000 or so, shall we say, as an average to file a patent. And you have a process then that may extend another 2 or 3 years of trying to get that patent through the patent office.
Okay.
And you'll probably spend that much again, another $10,000. So I tell clients, if you're thinking about patents, think $20,000 for your original country. And then we can file follow-on patents in other countries. It won't be as expensive, but it still gets expensive. You got to do translations. You've got to deal with all the different offices. So you have to be strategic with your IP to identify the market that you want to protect and the budget that you have to protect it.
And these costs are recurrent costs, like yearly costs, yearly thing, or once you trademark something or you patent something, it's with you forever?
A little bit of both. So there are some maintenance fees, but certainly the numbers that I just gave are not recurring costs. There are some recurring costs, but they're much smaller.
Super. Let's circle back to your company, like Osha BWB. I want to talk about, like, first of all, what inspired you to create something on your own? You've been working in a company that you had a great mentor, and is this the first company that you created right after you left this job, or?
Yes. So in fact, I ended up with that great mentor. We were absorbed into a large firm, and so I was in a very traditional, very good U.S. Patent firm, and the objective for a young lawyer in a firm is to become partner. Yes. It's like this gold ring above you. And you want to try to get there. True. And the law firms are very smart. They make it seem very attractive, and they realize that it will motivate their people to work very hard. And so you work long hours. True. And so I made partner, and I was 29. I was the youngest partner in the history of the firm. And everybody thought, wow, what a great achievement. Yeah. And I resigned less than a year later.
No way.
And it was because the group of people, the team, individually, all excellent people, but they didn't play well together. And it just wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. I couldn't be my best self, right? And so I decided then and there I wanted to create something new and different, and not only do what I hope is really good work, but also create an environment where we can lift people up and not push them down.
I love this because we talked about this off camera. Can you elaborate on this? Usually in law firms, there's an internal competition and everybody knows that. And you wanted to get out of this, create a culture that's more of collaboration rather than competition. Am I correct?
Exactly, exactly. And so you look at the people in my firm, almost all, 90+%, are people that I hired when they were engineers or scientists, before they ever thought about law school. And I trained them, and then they trained the next generation, and so on and so forth. So most of the people have been together for a long time. We're very cohesive, and we all support each other.
Wow.
And the idea that there would be internal competition is just so foreign to good business sense, frankly. So I always tell my partners, and anybody new that starts with a firm, to forget that it's a law firm. Said, it's not a law firm, it's a grocery store. People are, John, what are you talking about? It's not a grocery store. I said, no, it is a grocery store. It's a grocery store. And I say, you, Jeff, you are an expert at cheeses. You know how to pick out the best cheeses in the world and to display them in a beautiful way that customers like. And you, Carlin, you are expert in vegetables. And you get the finest, freshest vegetables, and so on and so forth. Okay, we each have our expertise. We complement each other. And the customer who comes in to buy the cheese hopefully stops and gets the vegetables and this sort of thing. That's how a grocery store works, right? Can you imagine if Jeff, who's my partner, I'm picking on him, but if Jeff, who's the cheese expert, one of his customers comes and says, hey, I'd like some vegetables. Do you have vegetables? If Jeff answered, well, yeah, there's some vegetables, but they're all the way over at the other end of the store, and I have some vegetables right here behind my cheese counter. Why don't you buy them? Okay.
A lovely analogy.
No business would do that, but that's how law firms work, right? So we have made a point of making sure that we do not have that type of activity in our business. You know, when a client comes to us, we're going to put the best team to work on trying to make that client happy, do the best job we can, and no individual person owns a client, and to avoid that type of.
That was one of the inspirations that made you create your own company, right?
It did, yeah. That was one of the fundamental ideas, and the secondary one was to start with people who are technical experts. On the patent side, our clients want us to speak their language, and they're very sophisticated people when you're talking about high-end technologies, and today, AI and blockchain and all this kind of stuff. And if you can't speak their language, it's very frustrating for them. So I like to say I can take a highly trained technical person, I can teach them the patent stuff they need to know. But it's much more difficult to take a smart lawyer and teach them the technical details.
True.
It just is. Not that it can't be done, but it is. So our hiring approach has been to find these people who are already in industry. They already have advanced degrees. They're already technical experts. We bring them in and then we teach them the patent stuff. And that's been a winning formula for us.
Wow. If I talk about your company, like Osha WBW, right? You have how many offices across the globe?
6 or 7. I haven't counted.
Yes. 6 or 7.
The most recent one is here in Dubai. Super exciting. Super
Wow.
exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How it is important to have this kind of global reach in this particular industry?
It's incredibly important. These days, almost all companies are international, at least at some level. And unfortunately, the rules are different country to country. The strategies can be different. So having that global reach and the expertise in how the systems work in the different countries is vital, not only to doing the work, but giving the advice at the outset. So if you don't know how things work in a certain country, it's very hard to give strategic advice.
100%.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about our region, the Middle East. I do believe that IP in general in the region is kind of a blue ocean. How do you see it, and how do you see your involvement in the region with your Dubai office will help the companies, either they're well established or even startups, to gain an edge in this?
It is a little bit of a blue ocean. I would say there's a lot of expertise in trademarks here. So trademarks of goods. And so there's substantial depth of knowledge
in
trademark practice. There is less so, in my view, on the patent side, and probably less so on the copyright side. So there's opportunity, I think, to help build that practice and that expertise, which is what we hope to do through our Dubai office.
All the best, all the best. If I look at your company, and you said there are a lot of companies and they're doing the same, there is depth. What makes your company stand out?
Well, two things, I believe. First is that we are a window to the rest of the world from the Dubai office.
Yeah.
And because we have this highly cohesive firm that happens to have offices and expertise in all the major jurisdictions, we can provide that bilateral path, that communication path to those jurisdictions, both for companies that want to protect their rights in this region, be they a European company or a Japanese company, but likewise a business here locally that wants to protect their rights in other countries.
Abroad.
And that's a unique thing. The other aspect that is unique on the patent side is this technical expertise that we have. We're not just lawyers, we're actually lawyers who have technical backgrounds. And that makes a huge difference for the technical work.
John, when you explained in the beginning what's an IP, you right away refer to it as an asset. And you and your company, I believe, do two things: protect the IP and monetize as well. Am I correct? What is the two angles of, like, when you have an IP, it needs to be protected, and at the same time you can monetize this type of IP?
Yes.
Because it's an asset. Just, can you give us an explanation of this?
Yes, and monetizing IP has a little bit of a bad reputation, so we should be careful.
Yeah.
So normally, when we're protecting IP, as I mentioned, we're doing it as part of a business
BP,
business model, and it's a vital part of it to keep your competitors from copying you, from taking your customers. And we can be very strategic in that, in terms of not only protecting our stuff, but offensively patenting, trying to get patents that will be in the way of the competitors. And that game can be played aggressively. Monetizing can be quite different. So that's where we have an asset and we want to sell it for money, right? That's what monetizing means. So there may be a situation, for example, where a company has developed a whole portfolio of IP around a product or service line that they're no longer interested in. So they'll come to us and say, okay, John, we have this. Can you please get us something for it? And we will help do that. So we will evaluate it. We will look for other industry players, and we will try to place that asset.
Wow.
And
for sale, kind of.
Yeah. And we have a branch of my firm that does that on a commission basis, and we're kind of like real estate brokers in that case.
True.
But you have to know the market. You have to know the technology. The other thing, though, there's what's derisively called patent trolls, and the people who buy up patents with the sole purpose of trying to sue people and making money. Now, if you own a patent and it's a good patent and somebody is infringing it, then you have a right to stop them, right? But a lot of what's happening, particularly in the United States, is people are buying up patents that aren't particularly good. They're filing lawsuits that aren't particularly strong, and then they're offering to settle them for very small amounts of money that are less than what it would cost to pay the lawyer to defend. And that starts to not smell good, right? So that's why I said we got to be a little careful about monetizing IP. There's kind of good monetizing IP, and there's
the shady one.
There's the shady monetizing, and I don't take any part in.
Because I remember, there are a lot of people, even like, in a simple perspective, like buying these domains online, just buying for $2, park, and once anybody needs this domain, give me the money.
Yes.
It's very shady.
And people do that on trademarks.
Oh, of course. Yeah, as well. If people now wanted to start a business, just a business model, there is an idea, there is a business model associated to it. From your perspective, to protect their IP, what's the first step they need to do? To consult? What?
To consult. Because there is no one size-fits-all answer.
Okay.
It depends entirely on the type of the business and what's involved. There will almost always be some IP aspects that are worth protecting, but it really depends on, is it a biotech startup? We're going to have a very different IP strategy. If it's, some sort of service company or an app to deliver food to your house or whatever, it's going to be very, very different. So speak to somebody who knows early.
And it doesn't depend on the size of the idea. Like somebody's building the next Facebook versus a person wants to open a coffee shop. Both should act the same way.
Both should consult early, right? The coffee shop, unless it's going to be, a high-tech coffee shop, maybe it will.
True.
You're probably talking about a trademark in the name and maybe, copywriting your menu. It's easy. It's inexpensive.
True.
Right? The next Facebook, that's an
another
entire different
game.
That's another game,
True.
right? That's another game.
I love that.
Yeah.
John, if we're talking about AI now and we see everything is changing around us with AI, all industries are being disrupted in a way or another with AI.
Yes.
How is IP is being disrupted with AI? I can't imagine it. So just can you give us an idea how it works?
It's challenging the IP system, as do all significant new technologies. So it takes a little bit of time for the law to catch up with new technology sometimes. And we are in growing pains right now in a number of aspects. So, for example, how do we and can we patent AI itself?
Yeah.
That's difficult, right? That's difficult. The data that's running AI is, first of all, huge.
True.
It's owned by a lot of different people. It typically crosses borders.
True.
So you have a lot of issues as to
Which
how do I
countries where?
protect
True.
that data at the same time?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that people's personal data are protected and not being digested
True.
by the giant AI? So this
100%.
is a problem. And then copyright. AI is really causing a mess for copyright.
Yeah.
And maybe you've read about
Of course,
that, right?
of course.
But I might give an example. If you imagine that you are a visual artist, you're a painter, you spent your whole career developing a particular style. And so when I go into, or the consuming public goes into an art gallery,
True.
I can see a work and I say, that's one of yours. I know your style.
Yeah.
Right? So how valuable is that to you,
Exactly.
right? It's your life's work,
True.
right? Well, AI now can take those images, can scan them, and then anyone, even somebody like me, can say, create me a work of art in the style of
True.
insert name, right?
True.
What impact does that have on you,
Oh my God.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge impact, right? But that's what's happening right now. So we're struggling in IP, within the IP law community, to figure out how we deal with that. Do we let that just happen and say, too bad?
Yeah.
Too bad. Do we say we're not going to allow that at all? In which case,
Yeah, exactly.
we're blocking
True.
technological advance. Or do we come up with some way to compensate you? So this is very complicated.
Super complicated. Even I can't comprehend how it will be. There will be a work around it.
Yeah.
It's super.
Yeah.
And there is no solution to now.
There is no uniform
Concrete,
solution. Yeah. There's a lot of discussion going on, but there is no solution yet.
Especially for content creators.
Yeah.
That's their.
Yeah.
Either you're like an author, an artist, like whatever it is. It's becoming.
But there will be a solution. And remember, for any listeners who are old enough to remember when digital music started, and there was something called Napster.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And the prevailing thought at the time was digital music isn't protectable. It's electronics. It's stuff, only albums and CDs are protectable,
cassette
right?
tapes, too.
Well, we fairly quickly figured out, no, we need to protect digital music because that's the value of it. It's just a different representation of this artistic content. And we came up with a system that works ultimately. It took some time. So the same thing will happen with AI. I'm confident. But right now we're in that stage that we don't really know. We don't really know.
Wow. John, you're running several offices. What's your leadership style?
I believe in building people up. And I take great joy and get enormous fulfillment out of mentoring and giving people opportunity to grow. And I can say with all honesty that I am surrounded people in my business, or my businesses, by people that are smarter than I am. They're more well-educated than I am. And why do they, sometimes I wonder, why do they work with me, right? But we've created this atmosphere that people want to work together. And we have set the stage so that they can be their best selves.
Wow.
And that's very powerful, I think.
John, I will move to a section. I know that you've wrote a book. And can you tell us a little bit about this book and what message you wanted out of the book? And a little bit about, because I'm a huge book fan. And I'm going to be waiting for the book from you to read it because it's a very interesting topic. But for our audience, what was the idea behind the book and what is exactly the message you want to deliver from that book?
Well, so it's right on topic with what we just discussed. This interplay, this disruption that AI has caused in the patent space.
Wow.
And so it has not only disrupted the patent space, it has disrupted it in different countries in different ways.
True.
So for those of us who are trying to help companies protect AI-related inventions in multiple countries, it's a mess. Because not only do we not know what's going on, it's different angles in different countries. So we put together under the umbrella of the organization called AIPPI, which is the International IP Association. We put together this idea of a book where we would have a chapter from every significant country or region.
Okay.
And we found experts in each country to write that chapter.
Wow.
And then I was the editor. So I came up with the book concept and I oversaw all the writing.
I love the idea. It's a big work, actually.
So it was a huge work because there were many dozens of participants. But it is, so far as far as I know, the only book that has looked internationally at what the state of patent law is as to AI. So it's a little dry for the general readers. I would say
but
that
it's important for people to know that early on.
Yes, and there is an excellent introduction in that book to what AI is. This is another challenge that we have. Everybody talks about AI. Most people don't really know what it is and what it's not.
True.
Right? And so we had one of the leading experts, one of the fellows that worked on Google search, a PhD AI guy, write the technical introduction to my book in a way that makes it understandable to a non-technical person.
Wow.
And so if nothing else, reading that chapter
is more than enough for people.
Will be very helpful, I think.
If I'm going to move to a little bit your non-profit organization, which is CompuDopt, correct?
CompuDopt.
Tell us about it. Why your attorney, then non-profit? Because you said one thing off camera, that you're in the phase of in your life that you love giving back. So take us in this chapter a little bit.
Yes, well, so this goes back to 2008 or so. And I recognized that in our home office city, which is Houston, Texas, there were a lot of communities where the kids didn't have access to a computer. And it just seems so unfair that, my kids had access to a computer and your kids would have access to a computer, but here were these communities where they didn't. And the schools were starting at that time to require children to do homework on a computer and to print it out. And so these kids would have to walk to a library or community center. At the same time, the average lifespan of a computer in a corporate setting was and still is about 3 years. A 3-year-old computer, which is a little bit too old for a company to want, is absolutely great for a child. It's plenty powerful. So we developed our own release of Linux. So we didn't have to deal with licenses and all this kind of stuff. We would load the Linux onto these computers and give them out free to kids. And we would go to our corporate clients and say, look, you're currently doing nothing with your computers.
True.
Give them to us. Let us give them to kids. So there's also a recycling aspect. So our organization so far to date has donated more than 110,000 computers.
Oof.
We've serviced more than 600,000 children.
Wow.
And we've kept more than 700 tons of e-waste out of landfills.
Wow.
So it's a very, very significant thing.
Wow.
But the other part of it is not just giving the computer. You have to give the training as well.
True.
And so we've developed a suite of really inspiring, modular, interesting programs that these kids can then take free of charge. We normally do it after school. And they not only have the physical device, they have that follow-on training, that inspiration. That not everybody needs to become an AI scientist,
true.
Right? But whatever they choose to do, at least they have that training, they have that in their pocket.
How do you manage all this, John? Running several offices, a business and non-profit. How do you manage that?
It's about finding the right people. I have been truly blessed with having people who, for whatever reason, continue to work with me, and they're so competent. And part of lifting people up of a leadership style is also giving people room to experiment, to fail, to not micromanage, which is a critical thing that I think a lot of people have trouble letting go. And it's not, those are the two main businesses, but I also run a real estate business, and I'm even a garlic farmer.
No way.
So we can talk about garlic farming.
No way.
So it's all over the map.
Why garlic? Why garlic?
I love garlic.
Very interesting.
I love
Why?
garlic. Garlic is a great thing. In the United States, it's actually hard to find good quality garlic.
Okay.
Almost all of what you find in the grocery store is a soft neck garlic that comes from China.
But don't let me stop you here, because I love to always know the root cause. You can't be sitting on a couch and say okay, garlic.
Yes,
that's an idea. How did garlic came to you?
Yeah, well, I have a farm.
Okay.
It's in the northwest part of the United States. It's at high altitude, so over the winter we get a lot of snow.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to decide what crop can I grow profitably. Organically, because it has to be organic, and garlic's the perfect crop because this special type, this good type, we call it hardneck garlic. It needs to be cold for several months, 3 or 4 months. So we plant in October, and then it's we get a meter of snow. It sits under the snow.
Yeah.
It's really really cold, and then around April or May, it pops up out of the ground, and then we harvest it in late July, early August. So it's a very, very good crop for the region, and it's the best crop.
You're gonna send me a couple.
I'll send you some. Yes.
If I ask you what or how do you define success to yourself? What is success?
Success is a journey to me, and I think that I used to look at success as something that I could reach. And I now realize, as I've gotten on in the years, that success for me is being able to pursue the things I want to pursue. And that's a luxury.
Yeah.
And whether it's continuing to work in the intellectual property space, which I love, working in the nonprofit, which I love, getting my hands dirty in the farm, which I love, reading books, doing music, all of this, in my mind, is success.
Wow, I love how you put it. If you look at John, and you'll let me ask you this, what were your, I would say, traits or habits that contributed to this kind of success?
Waking up early, that's one of them. I think there's a common thing you will find, and a routine. So I like to wake up early. I like to read the news, and I think it's really important to, particularly these days, to know what's going on in the world and to read the news from multiple sources. So I read the news in 2 or 3 different sources in English and also in Spanish and French and Japanese every morning. And that gives me a nice feeling for what's going on in the world, right?
Not one perspective, true.
and exercise, and then plan my day, decide what I'm going to do, and execute on that.
So you're a big believer of routines, because I see a lot of people that says like, I like to wake up and do whatever I want. I'm not from that club. I'm also a routine based. Everything is, I'm not gonna say everything is scheduled, but when I wake up, after I wake up, I need to do this and that, and then it has to be based on routine and discipline. So that's from that club.
Absolutely. I think that routine and just following that routine, even if you don't achieve everything that you set out to achieve that day, you had a goal and you made an effort to reach that goal.
If I ask you, what is your favorite failure? A failure that you are proud of?
Well, I already mentioned two, which was my failed music career and my failed engineering career. But in the legal field, my favorite failure was not following the advice that had been given by my mentor. So one of my favorite pieces of advice that I received was this mentor. His name was Barry, great guy. Barry said, "Look, John, most people, they talk first and they don't listen. So here's a rule for life. Listen, consider, decide, and then act." Right? So, that makes sense. Yeah. And we've all been in Zoom meetings, or a physical meeting where somebody just starts talking. And I wish he would just stop talking and listen for a minute, right?
True.
So I thought that was great advice, and I tried to follow it. But the very first time I appeared in a courtroom, I was a young lawyer. It was federal court, so in the U.S. it's the big important court, scary. And I had a small role of an argument that I was supposed to make. And so I prepared. I read every case, man. I was ready to go. And we went in there, and the other issues came up. I'm sitting there like, okay, going through it in my head, I'm going to make
preparing,
and the judge said something that related to my topic, and I stood up and I said, "Well, Your Honor," and I started going through my points. And he let me go for about a minute. And then he said, "Mr. Osha, stop." "Yes, Your Honor." "Answer my question." And I realized
you said something else.
I had no idea what his question was. Right? I hadn't listened. I was so focused on what I was going.
Yeah.
And so that was a great failure.
True.
And it really informed me, because you can get that lesson about listen.
True.
And consider and decide and act, but it's hard to do. You need some practice.
True.
Right? And so that was an epic failure.
True.
To follow this advice.
Okay. Can you repeat the question again?
Sorry, Your Honor. What was the question? And I actually had to ask him, and it was a yes or no question. And then I said, "Yes, Your Honor." And then I said, "Done." It was very embarrassing.
That's a lovely lesson. Yeah. If I switch it, what's your proudest moment? The greatest accomplishment to date?
Well, my proudest moment would be around my children, of course.
Yeah.
In this business, and there's nothing more satisfying than watching your children grow up, and in my case, grandchildren. In business, I think it's the community that we've created. There's no one. We won this case or something. That all becomes trivial at the end of the day. It's looking around at this group of people that have worked together so long and in such a positive way that makes me feel good.
True. We are in the Alpha Talks. One of the main questions in the show is, if I ask you, how do you define an alpha? What's your definition of an alpha?
Well, I can tell you as an engineer / scientist that there's a particular meaning, as I'm sure you know, in primate studies and sociology. That an alpha, and particularly an alpha male, would be, first of all, a male, and somebody who leads by domination. I certainly don't think that that's a role model that I follow. And in fact, I think if we take the more generous modern alpha that I believe you espouse, first of all, it need not be a man.
True.
Most often, it's somebody who is leading by assisting others, as we said earlier, by lifting other people up. And by surrounding yourself with people with great minds and abilities, and leading them, giving them the leadership, the support that they need, but also the freedom to fail. You know,
I
the
love
freedom
that.
to fail. Then that's leadership in my view, and that's
True.
That's an
modern
alpha.
alpha.
That's
I
a modern
love
alpha.
that. We have a section called the Alpha Quickfire. I'll ask you quick questions.
Sounds difficult.
You give me quick answers. What is the most important lesson you've learned from over 30 years in IP law?
Humility.
What daily habit has been essential for maintaining your success both in law and leadership?
Routine.
What is the biggest challenge you faced while managing global intellectual property portfolios?
Cultures. Different cultures.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you'd give to young entrepreneurs about protecting their innovations?
Seek advice early.
What is the most pivotal moment in your career that shaped your leadership?
I would say when I started Osha BWB. Yeah.
Wow. If you could change one thing about the current IP laws globally, what would it be?
I would make them all the same.
Oof, I love that. Now we go to the next section where you ask me any question that comes to your mind.
What comes to my mind? Well, just sitting here with you, which is a privilege, by the way.
I appreciate it. Same.
It's clear that you enjoy what you do. So what is it about your personality that makes you so curious about other people? And
You know, you said one thing in the beginning, which we have in common. I love learning because I had a terrible experience back in the days when I thought that I know everything. And at that moment, things start crushing. So even till that moment, I have an hour and a half daily, I learn something new. Absolutely a student. So I am curious about learning things, especially when we prepared for this episode. Your angle or your business model or your industry, it's totally different than the general. So I was so happy to dig deep and try to understand, and even from the questions, I wanted to literally understand. I feel myself as an audience, my audience. I put myself in their shoes. I want to get more information. So I believe this is the main thing that makes, I'm curious to know more.
that comes through. That's really neat.
Exactly. And I believe that once you stop learning, it's once you stop growing, and once you stop growing, you literally die.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I love that. We have the next section is called the Alpha Choices. So are you ready? I'm going to ask you two things. You pick one. Okay. So patents or trade secrets?
Oh, it depends.
Man,
it depends. But patents if we can.
Okay. International IP harmonization or national IP sovereignty?
Harmonization, absolutely.
Innovation in AI or blockchain?
AI innovation is much more significant.
Yeah. Building a global law firm or running a non-profit? Oh my God.
Oh, both.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'll leave it here.
I can't choose one. I
I'll
love
leave
them
it
both.
here. Leadership through mentorship or leadership through action?
Mentorship, absolutely.
Protecting startups or multinational corporations?
That's both as well.
It's a hard one.
They're both fun
Hard one.
and both important.
Litigating IP cases or shaping IP policies?
Shaping IP policies.
I love that.
Yeah. In my view, if we litigate, we've done something wrong.
True.
Right.
True.
That's
true.
the last thing we should do.
What will be the last message you want to leave the audience with today?
Well, for young entrepreneurs, to believe in yourself. I think this is so important.
Yeah.
And in my own personal journey, when I decided to leave the old law firm and start my business, everyone told me,
No.
you have a safe job.
You're a partner.
Why would you do this?
Yeah.
But I believed in myself. And when I started CompuTopt, everyone said, oh, there's got to be somebody who's already doing that. And how are you going to make an impact? And I listened to myself and I did it. So listen to other people, take advice, consider it, make a decision, and then act on it. And once you've made that decision, trust yourself.
John, I'll go back to the day because people think, okay, once you reach a level, like you're a partner in a law firm, then you go into your entrepreneurship journey, people think that once you hit the ground, you're going to be successful. Was that the case, or you had hell period of times?
Oh, it was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Quite difficult. And it was scary. You know, I like I said, I was 29.
True.
I didn't have much money. I had 5 young children, so I had a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
And not only did I resign, but I convinced 12 other people
Oh my God.
to come with me.
Yeah.
So I had the burden of
Responsibility,
the
yeah.
office rent and paying these people's salary. It was very, very stressful.
What kept you going? The belief in yourself?
Fear, probably.
Yeah. I love that.
fear of failure. No, I had faith in myself, but there was also a good bit of fear, you know, and that kept me. I worked real hard.
100%. 100%. I think a lot of people resonate with this. John, if anybody of our listeners and viewers want to contact you or contact your company, what is the best way that they can do that?
They're welcome to look us up on the internet, so OBWB.com or computopt.org.
Super. I'll leave them in the description as well.
Yeah, or find me on LinkedIn.
Super. John, we have a last section in the episode, which is called the Alpha Talks Memoir, where you have to write your experience in the show, but right after the recording. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is to answer a question from the previous Alpha guest. We don't know who, you will not know who. But again, also you will write another question to the next Alpha guest. So it's a way of communicating the Alpha guest.
That's very nice.
So are you ready for that?
And you have so many guests already.
You know, when I open it, I feel.
Yes.
I feel. Okay. What has been your favorite moment of your life so far?
Oh gosh, that's so difficult. To have a favorite moment. Yeah, there's so many wonderful moments at different times, from of course the family and the birth of children and all of that, to successes in significant events in business. I would be unable to,
of course,
give you a single choice.
Understand. John, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. And I'm sure everybody watching us and listening to this episode will gain a lot, and I would say a lot, of valuable information, particularly in an area where a lot of people are blindfolded towards it. So thank you very much for being with us today. It's a pleasure and honor. And I'm sure we're going to do another episode down the line where we dig deep in a particular topics in IP, so really the audience can get the real value and act accordingly. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thanks to you. It's really been a lot of fun talking to you, and I look forward to digging deep in the future.
Same here. All the best. That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others. It's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of alphas supporting one another. The world needs more alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay alpha.